Sonic 2 was an absolute smash hit as it was the best-selling Genesis game of that year, which really set in stone Sega's mark on the 4th generation of home consoles. The Super Nintendo and Genesis were true rivals of each other considering the kinds of advertisement that Sega pushed out mocking the Super Nintendo. Of course, in 1993 we got Sonic CD, but that was locked behind the Sega CD, which completely flamed out sale-wise, and it had a ridiculous price point that nobody would be willing to pay for. I mean, like, I'm not going to be paying like $200 to get an attachment to let me play CD-ROM games. Sega Technical Institute was thriving a bit after Sonic 2's release, and while a few core Sonic team members left, they still had plenty of stuff to go around, so in early 1993, they began development, which was around the same time that Sonic CD was underway alongside that. Yuji Naka and tensions between STI would be rising since people found out that it was hard to work with him and was set to leave back to Japan after Sonic 3 was finished. And around this time is when Sonic Team brought on Takashi Iizuka, who would go on to be the head of Sonic Team to this day, and Jun Tanoe for the OSC after Masato Nakamura wasn't recommissioned to do Sonic 3 because of what he was demanding to be paid. There were even rumors that Michael Jackson was working on the OSC for Sonic 3 alongside Jun Tanoe, which is honestly incredible. Sonic 3 originally had the idea of being an isometric game that would later be purposed for something like Sonic 3D Blast, but we all know how that ended up.
Ew, what the freak is that? Ew.
It took around a year and a month to get the game out. In that time, they decided to split the game in half to meet a McDonald's toy deadline with the Sonic characters, and they look absolutely atrocious as you'd expect from whatever McDonald's makes tie-in toys. I would know, because I got a few toys from McDonald's as a kid, but those have been sadly lost to time. Their fix to the issue of Sonic 3 being divided is that they would release the other half of the game later that year, and to have the complete experience on top of the Sonic & Knuckles cartridge, there was the infamous lock-on technology, where you can put on the Sonic 3 cartridge into the slot to get the completed Sonic 3 & Knuckles experience. These CG renders are something I'm mixed on. I guess it's a show of how much more budget that was going into Sonic 3 as it is the ultimate Sonic experience on Genesis, but as of recording this video, I don't own Sonic 3 for my Genesis. It's like how I don't have a Sega CD either. There's definitely a lot more quality of life improvements to the Sonic formula with Sonic 3. You have full save slots now, so if you get a game over, you can just boot it back to the main menu and then just reload the stage you died at, which is really, really helpful considering there's a total of 14 stages, with a few of them only having one act, but still, with that much content, a save system was definitely warranted this time around. Normally when doing these videos, I usually use fan products or remasters like the Whitehead ports or Sonic 3 Air, but my buddy Snakeshrimp told me to just use the original game since I can give my thoughts on the vanilla, unmodified game. So go watch his content. He makes some pretty good stuff. The sprites have seen the jumbo qualities, all of them were redrawn to make them a lot more clean, and while I like the Sonic 2 sprites more, this one is definitely objectively better one if we're speaking in total quality. So let's jump into the first zone of Sonic 3 & Knuckles in his final Genesis bout. Angel Island Zone. The zone begins with a cutscene, and this is a first since cutscenes at the start of a Sonic game is something unheard of, since cutscenes would be reserved for something like boss intros and ending cutscenes. But with Sonic 3, there are transition cutscenes to lead into following zones and so on. This is when we get introduced to Sonic's more infamous rival and soon to be one of his best friends, the sole inhabitor of Angel Island, Knuckles the Echidna. This guy at the time of his appearance in Sonic 3 was as big as Sonic himself as he became the rival of Sonic for Sonic 3. While Metal Sonic was a thing in CD, he ended up getting nuked in Stardust Speedway, but in here, Knuckles is the consistent threat you have to face in the entire game. And even better, he's even playable, but we'll talk about that later when we do his part. The story of Sonic 3 is one of the biggest and has the highest stakes we've ever seen in a Sonic game to this point. It was after Sonic 2, the death that crashed onto Angel Island following Sonic 2, and Eggman meets Knuckles, who tricks him into thinking Sonic and Tails are villains and to get the Death Egg back into the sky. And whenever the pair chasing the falling Death Egg onto the island arrives, this is when Knuckles stops them and then takes the Chaos Emeralds. The story has more depth than Sonic Forces ever did. Tails this time is a fully implemented character this time around where he can actually fly and do something this time, which is great since all I did before was be more of a Sonic and had no real use in Sonic 2. And on the topic of things that Sonic 2 that are improved is the special stages. They make their return once more and as usual beating all of them awarded to 7 Chaos Emeralds and Super Sonic. This is the debut of the Blue Spear Special Stage. The half-pipe from Sonic 2 was a nightmare on Genesis like I said in the last video, but the Blue Spears are actually fair and you get plenty of time to react as they have a good and smooth gradual increase in their difficulty. The longer you take it to stage, the faster you go and the more difficult it becomes to avoid obstacles. It's essentially a balance of if you know how to go through these stages you can blaze through them, but if you don't know where to go then you'll likely take a lot longer to get through. To actually enter into the stage, instead of jumping into a special ring at the end with 50 rings or finding a checkpoint with that same amount of rings, instead there are giant rings hidden across every stage up until Lava Reef Act 2, and there's a lot of spots with these, but not as much as the checkpoints in Sonic 2, but they have more challenge to find but have a nice and smooth skill increase, so it's not entirely horseshit. In addition to the blue spheres, there's also the bonus stages. You enter into them the same way you would a special stage in Sonic 2. Meet a threshold with rings and jump into the stars to get a bonus stage. You can use it to get extra goodies like more rings, shields, or 1-ups. Back to the main stage, Angel Island is definitely a good intro stage, and we get shown Sonic's new abilities. If you hit the jump button again while airborne, you activate the Insta Shield. This move extends Sonic's attack range to give him split-second iframes to help with bosses, and this is very useful to close the gap against bosses you are just out of reach of hitting from Sonic's regular hitbox. I didn't go into much detail about power-ups in the previous Sonic reviews for no reason at all, which is dumb since I was reviewing the games, but now is a better time to talk about them. There are 3 new power-ups for Sonic to get alongside the Speed Shoes, and that is a new Elemental Shield. They all protect Sonic from damage like before, but each one has a specific function that helps get through stages faster. The Fire Shield gives you a mid-air dash and makes you invulnerable when you do dash into something and protects you from fire damage. The Electric Shield gives Sonic a double jump and protects you from, you guessed it, electrical hazards, along with magnetizing any nearby rings. And the Bubble Shield, where if you jump mid-air, you stomp back down and it will give you a higher jump, and it works especially well underwater with you having an infinite air supply. Add that alongside Sonic's base moveset and it adds a lot of substance to the regular gameplay, as you now have items and power-ups for you that can actively help you tear through stages and find extra routes. A nice thing I like about Angel Island is how the first act changes midway through, as Eggman is beginning his assault on Angel Island on his end as the place gets bombed and now this place is in flames with a makeover. Another thing that has changed in Sonic 3, how while there is still 2 acts like Sonic 2, but instead there's a boss in every zone now. Angel Island Act 1 being one of the machines that Eggman used to blow up part of Angel Island. Bosses fundamentally remain the same, as their health bars are usually 8 hits as a standard for 2D Sonic, so nothing changed with that. And since there's a boss in every act, now the signpost to that ended stage now drops down from the top of the screen, and you can bounce it up and down to gain extra points on your score, which you can see how beneficial that would be if you're trying to get an extra life. Like I mentioned before, there are these cutscenes that usually tie into the next stage, and the one for Angel Island has Knuckles' activated trap to make you fall into the next zone, Hydrocity Zone, or Hydro City. I don't know, I call it Hydrocity. You know, for a question of the day, I have to ask all of you, how do you say the zone's name? Comment down below. Do I even need to make another comment about this zone? Another good water level. This joke started back with Tidal Tempest in the CD review and then launched Octopus and most recently Aquatic Ruin. I will forever make fun of Labyrinth Zone until this whole retrospective of the Sonic series ends. There's plenty of alternate routes throughout the zone, which adds a lot of replay value, which is something I like in games. Giving you a reason to replay a level or section because you see something that could maybe do to make your life easier in the case of Sonic, get extra goodies, and faster stage time. But even then, it's a water level with the same aesthetic as it's a ruined underwater area. Like every other water stage in the Genesis game so far, so it gets a few points off, but still, this is a pretty banging stage if I say so myself. The boss is also decently creative. As an Act 1, you have to avoid this ball, but its attack is telegraphed that there's a sound cue, which means it's coming, so you have a chance to jump to avoid it. The Act 2 boss with Eggman requires a bit of brain power, as you need to damage him by either waiting for him to come down and you have a short window to attack him, or you could use the waterfall he leaves behind to jump on and attack him that way. Along with you being able to use these bombs to propel yourself upwards into him to deal damage, so you have a lot of methods to fight the boss, which is great design to me. Marble Garden is next up on the shopping block, and it is also a pretty solid level. You can definitely take notice of how it uses the theming of Marble Zone from Sonic 1, except this time the level design is great, and you can actually go fast in this level and not be punished for it. Mostly. The beginning of the first act had the set piece where Sonic rolls down off this hill after emerging from Hydrocity, and your momentum sends you into this room with an electric shield, so off rip you already get a useful power-up, especially with the amount of rings there are here in the beginning, meaning you can already get a good amount of rings, maybe to get a 1-up later in the stage, and along with being the fact that you're protected by the electrical shield. The first act's gimmick is that this machine is drilling into the surface of Marble Garden itself, and you have these switches that when you spin dash on top of them makes platforms for you to jump up to progress in the stage. I didn't understand how to do it at first when I first played the game, but when I figured it out, it was definitely like a wow brain blast moment. The Act 1 boss is just the drill from earlier, but the second act, Eggman himself comes in as part of the Garden Fall, as Tails has to hold Sonic while you chip away at Eggman while he tries to ram you in Tails with his Eggmobile that is now mounted with drills on all sides. So you have to have some kind of strategy behind the boss and don't mindlessly attack, or else you end up getting punished for it. But the next zone is definitely iffy. Carnival Night Zone, being the second case of a casino-sized carnival level in a Sonic game. This time it's filled with things you would see in a carnival like balloons and other kinds of decor. And this stage is home to the Barrel of Doom. Now you might ask yourself, what is the Barrel of Doom? I didn't know at first when I heard this term, but when I found out they were talking about it, it clicked. These barrels right here are really janky to control. A first-time player would assume you should just jump up and down as Sonic's weight going onto the barrel will cause it to fall down lower and let you pass through, but in this specific sequence, it is just not the case, as you have to press up and down on the D-pad repeatedly to move the barrels. Let me preface by saying that this is not a taught game mechanic. This is actually one of the first times I looked up a guide for a Sonic game, besides whenever I was playing Sonic Adventure for the first time while navigating its hub worlds and looking for where the next stage is. But we'll talk about Sonic's big leap into the third dimension another day. The bosses are also nothing burgers, if you ask me. The first boss is on an elevator, and you have to destroy this robot that slowly chips away at the floor, because if you take too long, you won't have any solid ground to walk on, and you'll fall into a death pit. And the Act 2 boss being one of the more generic ones, with Eggman flying above, and he'll drop a ball onto the ground that you need to avoid, and in the time that it's dropped, you can damage it, but once he hovers above the ball, he summons electricity that pulls you close to him, and it basically just functions like the Hydrocity Act 2 boss, except it's randomized on where he will go, and you're not in water. Ice Cap, woo! Oh man, this zone is pretty ballin'. The opening set piece is Sonic snowboarding down this mountain, and it is just so fun to do every time. I don't care if it's an automated segment, it still gives me chills every time. The entire first act sees you climbing out of the cave you fell into after the snowboarding segment, but the sprite work and detailing is just so beautiful. For a game in 1994, this is really breathtaking. And the music, oh my goodness, it is just a gem! Unfortunate that I got removed from Origins because of the whole Michael Jackson music rights situation. It's a more platforming focused act, but it's definitely a better pace, slower, unlike Marble Zone and Sonic Clone, where, as I said once before, I feel like an old man crossing the street. The boss's win where it summons a bunch of ice balls to use as shield, and it's another case of, you guessed it, timing on hitting an enemy, because screw you, we don't want you having fun. But if you have Super Sonic, then this is a piece of cake. And for going through the first act, Act 2 is a speed-focused state to reward you for beating Act 1. See, Marble Zone should have done this where one act was about platforming, the second was speed, and then the third was both speed and platforming combined. At least that's how I would go about it if I were to be the one designing Sonic 1's levels. The boss for Act 2 is one where you have to get on this platform Eggman drops from the Eggmobile to damage him, or if you got the electric shield, you can just double jump at him that way. Either is fine. Launch Bay Zone is a decent stage. It's not my favorite, and one I don't really like all that much, as it isn't a bad stage either, with some pretty cool set pieces along with its plot significance. Like I said before, Eggman is trying to re-unlock the Death Egg, and we can see it in the background as we move through the stage, and Knuckles obviously still trying to fuck with us as he throws a literal fucking bomb into the building at you, which causes it to collapse, but for the most part, the first act is a nothing burger with the jank-ass mini-boss that you can cheese if you have the right amount of timing. Act 2, on the other hand, is a bit more interesting with a lot of gameplay elements being mixed in. Water is returning, even if it's just a little bit of time, but overall, this act doesn't bring that much to the table, however, the bosses do. At the end of Act 2, you have to fight the normal Eggman boss, and that goes how you expect. Pretty simple gimmick to wrap your head around, so not that big of a deal, and even get to jack Eggman's Eggmobile to fly for a bit. Although, Knuckles ruins your fun, but he ends up falling down under the thrusters to the Death Egg, and I'm like, how the hell did he not get burned from the Death Egg? You know what, I'm not even going to ask, because this is Sonic logic. Alright, these guys literally can breathe in space. So Sonic, of course, has to board the Death Egg to stop Eggman again, and then you have this boss with Eggman that kind of reminds me of Django with how it's structured, but I'm probably just saying shit at this rate. Now this is a major difference between Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Sonic and Knuckles lie. With the Big Arms boss, when you have the cartridges connected to one another, this boss isn't present, although with base Sonic 3, this is the final boss for that game. And this boss is pretty cool if you ask me, and I wish I kept it intact for the combined experience, but hey, on the bright side, at least it's in Origins. Fuck! But after beating the boss, this is where the Sonic and Knuckles portion begins with Mushroom Hill Zone. You can tell this is the first zone because of the fact that it's green, pretty easy, and overall just a way to ease people into the game if they bought this alone instead of owning Sonic 3 beforehand. The stage starts with a cutscene early on of Knuckles escaping out of hidden passages, and he closes the door behind him with a button. So, obviously, this is meant to pique player curiosity, and when you go in, you find a giant ring. Instead, this time it's extra shiny! If you collected all the Chaos Emeralds, when you go into, you are taken to the hidden palace on Angel Island where the Master Emerald is. Transforming the Chaos Emeralds into magical Super Emeralds. When you do this, you are locked out of using Super Sonic until you beat the new and more hard special stages. Beating them grants you the Super Emeralds, powered up version of the Chaos Emeralds by the Master Emerald. Collecting all of them grants you Hyper Sonic, the most OP super form up to this point in the series. Sonic can go faster, jump higher, and do everything Super Sonic can, except way better. He's immune to drowning, and when you press jump again midair, he has a screen nuke dash that obliterates everything in sight. Getting this is definitely worth it. Mushroom Hill as a stage isn't bad and has some fun gimmicks, although it is kind of has the same syndrome as Carnival Night where you have to press down on the D-pad to move the contraption, but at least with this one, you know at least you're at least moving the fucking thing. And in typical Knuckles fashion, so far he fucks with you again, so yeah, that's neat. Bosses aren't something to write home about since this time it's just run-of-the-mill opening bosses. Flying Battery, however, is a gem. Remember how Winged Fortress in Sonic 2 was good enough, but it had its problems? Flying Battery fixes it tenfold, and this zone is just perfect. There's a reason this is my favorite zone in Sonic 3. And its background track is just phenomenal. Although the stage gets a 1 point deduction for me because it uses this sack of shit from Metropolis Zone in Sonic 2, I'm still coping about that dog shit stage. Boss isn't really anything too special either, other than the fact that it's the end goal, but has a bad neck that you can only damage by making it hit itself. Yeah, peak game design, am I right, fellas? And the Act 2 boss is also just mid. I mean, it's literally the Wing Fortress Zone boss, but this time it's way easier because you literally just avoid Eggman's attack until a certain threshold and it's met, and somehow he outruns Sonic again? Why in God's name is Eggman so fucking fast? Sonic, this guy is fat as all hell and you can't keep up with him? Dude. But oh wait, that boss is fake out where you get this fucking annoying ass boss where you literally have to wait for Eggman to shuffle around before poking his head up and then you can do damage to him. I mean, it's not bad in practice, but please do not make me wait 20 minutes to do one hit on a boss. No, 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 no! Sandopolis. This level fucking stinks. I mean, dude, talk about a change of pace and how slow this thing is, dude. Like, holy goodness, can any Sonic game just have a near flawless or solid stage route for once? Because every video I've done about this series, there's been one or a couple of zones that make me want to become Kratos IRL. And in Act 2, there's this gimmick with these annoying-ass ghosts that you have to put up with, and by the heavens, this is just so annoying to deal with, because guess what? If you take too long, you are done for. And you can't do anything unless you pull these levers to turn on the lights back on, which in and of itself is already a chore to do. And the bosses are nothing burgers. You literally just stand over here for the first act and wait for this guy to fall into the sand, and for this, you just jump into Eggman carefree because there's little to no hazard, so you can just hit him over and over and over and over till the boss ends. Can you guys tell I have anger issues? Anyways, after the mandated crash moment of video, we draw our attention to the final traditional stage in the game before we go into the final act. Lava Reef Zone. I love this zone so much. There are so many good things about it. First of all, is this underground lava cavern aesthetic is so nice to look at. There's a lot of breakable objects and fireballs with lava hazard anywhere for the most part, but it's pretty avoidable. The music is also banging as fuck in the first act, with me usually humming along as I blaze through the stage. Act 1's boss is kind of a nothing burger, and it's pretty readable to say the least, so it's not like you're gonna get ass blasted here. But Act 2 is like a gem, like genuinely. The lava cool to make these crystals for the level theme and music. Oh my god, the music is just a genuine work of art. Something cooler is that you can see the death egg that crashed back down onto the island if you remember what happened at the end of Launch Base Zone. But of course, as per usual, Knuckles is here to fuck with you again and throws a rock at you and causes you to fall down to the death egg. But guess what? It fucking turned on and immediately reheats the cooled crystals, so now they're sending missiles at you. You obviously avoid it to not get fried, and then you have Eggman in his little lava machine throwing spike balls at you where you need to jump on moving platforms and wait for the spike balls to hit Eggman. Does he think about his machines whenever he goes against Sonic? Like you were literally saying, hey Sonic, I'll let you damage my machine even though I'm trying to defeat you. The next zone is more so a continuation of Lava Reef Act 2 where you finally face off against Knuckles, but dear god, this is piss easy. I know this on my first attempt. But of course, this is the beginning of the climax of the game and where it's revealed that Eggman was duping Knuckles out for the Master Emerald the whole time. So reluctantly, Knuckles teams up with Sonic and Tails to stop Eggman, with Knuckles triggering this red orb to send it to the Sky Sanctuary Zone. A single X zone that's fairly easy, but the moment is so special since you see Eggman succeed in relaunching the Death Egg with the Master Emerald, and 2, with him sending out these elite egg robots to take care of you. Everyone says that Sonic 3 peaks right here, and for good reason. I mean, the thrill of narrowly chasing the Death Egg before it takes off into the sky is just breathtaking. Gradually, as you move through the zone, you face off against Mega Sonic Mark II, an upgraded version of the previous Mega Sonic that isn't as easy to defeat as before, using bosses from older games before you finally face them at the end, ending the zone off with Tails and Sonic climbing this final spire before boarding the Death Egg. Unlike Sonic 2, the Death Egg this time is a fully fledged 2-act zone like the rest of the game is, but I forgot to inform you that for a final zone, it's pretty weak. It has a lot of these gimmicks that are either some that we've already seen or others that, but this right here with this automated thing that just makes you go around is such a pace breaker. And I just get bored by it so fast whenever I have to put up with it. This first boss can go fuck itself. You can say it's a skill issue all you want. I hate this so much. The second boss is a bit better, but it's still annoying to deal with in my books, as you have to do this tedious process of hitting these little things to do damage to it, since you can't attack it normally. But after you beat that boss, you finally go face to face against a Death Egg robot, this time way bigger. He has two phases where you have to break his fingers, and then the following phase is an auto-scroller where you have a short window to do damage quickly to him before he shoots off a Master Emerald powered blast at you. Hit him enough times and he's done for. But here in Sonic 3 is the first time we get a true final boss, so if you collected all the Chaos or Super Emeralds, you can go Super or Hyper to fight Eggman one more time in the Doomsday Zone. This holds on to Scream Sonic, with the climax of the game being where you're chasing Eggman down in space, collecting rings, bobbing, weaving between obstacles before getting to him. The music in this stage is kick-ass too. He has two phases with his final weapon robot where you have to redirect his own missile into himself, and once that's done you have to manually hit the Death Egg robot another set amount of times. But you do have to be careful, since you are in your Hyper or Super form, you have a timer before it runs out of your form and die. So managing your rings while dodging obstacles and trying to hit Eggman is going to be a bit of a tough task. But once you finally hit the finishing blow, the Death Egg robot finally explodes and you successfully retrieve the Master Emerald. Tails coming with the tornado to help bring it back down to Angel Island, power being restored to the island as it floats into the sky, Knuckles running to see Sonic and Tails depart from Angel Island as we finally conclude Sonic 3. Wait, there's more? Well, what am I missing? Sure there isn't a whole other thing I forgot. Oh, right, Knuckles' campaign. I won't go over this campaign too long since it doesn't differ too drastically from Sonic or Tails, but it definitely has things to highlight. The story is basically simple. It takes place after Sonic's playthrough where an egg robo is doing some shenanigans and Knuckles is there to stop it. First off is the gameplay. Knuckles has his own different abilities to be distinct from Sonic and Tails. You can glide to reach places that Sonic would do as you fall before reaching, and you can climb walls. And there's a select few walls that Sonic nor Tails can break, but Knuckles can, allowing you to get a different route and have completely different gameplay from the dynamic duo. But every time Knuckles takes damage, it kinda looks like the Ash Baby. His final boss is pretty neat, as the campaign ends at Sky Sanctuary with another Mega Sonic Mark II boss, but this time, this dude goes super, and it is so cool to watch. But every time I see Mecha Sonic, I always imagine Cooler's voice, mainly because of Super Mario Bros. Z, but that could just be me. But in all regards, that's all for Sonic 3. I really enjoyed making this video. I'm sorry it took so long to make since I was grounded for a month and I couldn't make any progress, but now it's finished. As of writing this part of the script, it's December 20th, but while recording the voiceover, it's December 21st, so hey, that's neat. And I'm hoping you're watching some Christmas days, and I plan on getting up before after then. But, as always, I hope you all have a great day, and have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Alright then, see you next time.